It was early March, the time of year when I always sat down with my laptop and my stack of papers to file my taxes. I wasn't excited, but I wasn't worried either. I had done this before. It was usually simple. Fill in my work info, add my numbers, hit submit, and wait a few weeks for my refund. So that morning, I made a cup of coffee, opened my laptop, and took a deep breath. I typed my name, my address, and then my social security number, the same number I had typed every year since I turned 18. But instead of the next page loading, a red message popped up on the screen. This SSN has already filed a return. I blinked, then blinked again. That didn't make sense. Filed? Filed what? I hadn't filed anything. I tried again, typing slowly this time. Same error. My stomach tightened like someone had tied a knot inside it. Something was wrong, really wrong. I clicked the little help button, but it didn't explain much. All it said was that someone with my social security number had already sent in their tax return. Someone, as in me, or someone pretending to be me. My hands got sweaty. I wiped them on my jeans and grabbed my phone. I dialed the IRS number and waited. The phone made that long ringing sound over and over. I tried to breathe, but my heart kept thumping faster and faster. Finally, after what felt like forever, a woman answered. She spoke in a calm, gentle voice. IRS assistance. How may I help you today? I swallowed hard. Hi, I'm trying to file my taxes, but the system says my social security number has already been used. She asked for some basic information. I answered everything. My name, my birthday, my address, my SSN. Then she typed for a bit. I could hear her keyboard clicking as she checked the system. Then she said the sentence that made my whole body go cold. Sir, your refund has already been issued. I didn't understand at first. I'm sorry, what? She said it again, more slowly. Your refund has already been issued and deposited. Deposited. Paid out. Sent. I sat back in my chair as if someone pushed me. But I never filed, I said. I didn't send anything in. She hesitated. I could hear the confusion in her voice, too. According to our records, she said, a tax return was filed under your name 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago? I wasn't even near my tax papers 2 weeks ago. I pressed my hand over my mouth. Everything felt blurry. How much was the refund? I asked. She typed again. Then she told me the number. $4,327. $4,327. My refund. My money. Money I earned from long workdays and cold mornings. Money I counted on every single year. Gone. Stolen. Deposited into someone else's bank account. Someone who pretended to be me. I felt heat rise up my chest. My legs felt weak. My hands shook on the table. The woman on the phone sounded sorry, but there wasn't anything she could do right that second. Sir, she said gently, I believe someone filed a false return using your identity. Identity. My identity. Someone stole my social security number. Someone filled out a fake return. Someone took my refund. Someone took my money before I even knew it existed. I stared at the laptop screen, at the red error message, at the words that started this whole nightmare. This SSN has already filed a return. And that was the moment I realized someone had opened my tax season long before I even touched the keyboard. And they didn't just file before me, they stole from me. Growing up in my house was simple to understand, even when I was little. My older brother Chris was the king. Not a pretend king in a storybook. No, he was the king of real life inside our home. Everything he did was treated like magic. Everything he said was treated like wisdom. Everything he wanted was treated like a rule the whole world had to follow. People loved him everywhere he went. He was witty, always making jokes that made adults laugh. He was charming, smiling like nothing bad ever touched him. He was manipulative, but nobody noticed except me, and even when I noticed, no one cared. Mom had a favorite line she said so often that it stuck in my head like a song. Chris is gifted. Tyler, you're just stable. Stable. The word never felt like a compliment. Stable meant I paid my bills on time. Stable meant I held down 2 part-time jobs during school. Stable meant I drove Chris places when he forgot his gas money. Stable meant I covered for him when he missed deadlines or got into trouble. Stable meant I was the kid who cleaned up the messes nobody wanted to talk about. When Mom said gifted, she looked at Chris like he was a star in the sky. When she said stable, she looked at me like I was a flashlight in a drawer. Useful, but only when someone else was in the dark. Chris was the sun, bright, warm, shining on everyone and everything. I was the flashlight, small, quiet, only turned on during blackouts. The The difference changed everything. When Chris forgot homework, Mom wrote the teacher an email explaining he was overwhelmed. When I forgot homework once, she said, "Tyler, you have to be responsible." When Chris needed money, Mom took money out of grocery savings. When I needed money for a school trip, she said, "We can't afford extras right now." When Chris dented the car, Mom said, "It happens." When I broke a plate, she made me sweep for an hour. Everyone around Chris saw a golden child. Everyone around me saw someone safe to ignore. And even as we got older, nothing changed. Chris jumped from job to job, quitting when it got too stressful. I stayed at my job and worked extra shifts to make sure the bills were paid. Chris spent money like water. I saved and saved until I finally had something to show for all my hard work. Chris had drama every month. Late fees, broken plans, unfinished projects. I kept things steady so Mom didn't panic. Mom always said, "Chris is gifted," even when he didn't do anything special. She said, "Tyler is stable," even when stability was the only thing keeping our house from falling apart. I didn't hate Chris. I didn't want to be him. I didn't want to be the sun. But it hurt to always be the flashlight. Used, put away, forgotten. Looking back, it makes sense, painful sense, that Chris would eventually use my identity too. It wasn't a surprise, even though it still hurt. Chris had taken little things from me our whole lives. Money from my wallet, food from the fridge, shirts from my closet. He even borrowed my car once and forgot to return it for 3 days. But using my identity, my social security number, my tax information, that was bigger than anything he had ever done. And deep down, I guess I should have known he would do it. He always took the things that kept his world bright. He always expected me to clean up the shadows. So when the IRS told me someone filed taxes using my name, when they said someone claimed my refund, when they said someone took that $4,327, I shouldn't have been shocked. Because Chris had been borrowing pieces of my life since we were kids, and now he had taken the biggest piece of all, my identity. The moment I hung up after talking to the IRS, my hands would not stop shaking. It felt like tiny earthquakes were going off inside my fingers. I kept staring at the red error message on my screen, but it didn't change. My social security number had already been used. My refund had already been paid. Someone had stolen something that belonged to me before I even touched my own keyboard. So I called the IRS fraud department right away. The woman on the phone was calm and patient. She asked questions slowly so I could follow. After we finished talking, she said she would email me a copy of the tax return I supposedly filed. I waited and waited. My heart felt like it was pounding through my shirt. When the email finally came through, I clicked it open with hands that wouldn't stay steady. I expected a mistake, a mix-up, something easy to explain. But the moment the PDF opened, my whole body went cold. The address wasn't mine, not even close. It was a small apartment across town, a place I had never been. The bank account wasn't mine. I didn't recognize the numbers. It wasn't even at the same bank I used. The signature wasn't mine either. My real signature is small and neat. The one on the fake return looked huge and messy, like someone signed it while laughing. But the handwriting on the form? The crooked letters? The way the T leaned left and the Y dipped too low? My stomach knotted. I knew that handwriting. It was Chris's sloppy, oversized writing. I stared at the screen, feeling the air leave my lungs. The world felt too quiet, like time stopped in the small room around me. I felt sick, not just shocked, sick. Chris had filed my taxes. Chris had taken my refund. Chris hadn't just done it once. He had done it this year, and probably years before. I closed the fake return and opened my IRS transcript page. I'd never looked at it before. I didn't even know it existed until the woman told me how to find it. When I logged in, old records popped up. Tax returns from years I thought I had filed late or not at all. My heart dropped lower with every line I read. 2021 refund, $3,900 filed early. Refund issued quickly. Deposit sent to a bank I never used. 2022 refund, $4,180 filed early again. The form was sent to the same strange address. 2023 refund, $4,327 filed early, filed perfectly, filed by me. Except it wasn't me. My fingers pressed against my forehead. I felt dizzy. My heart kept thudding, too fast and too loudly. I counted the numbers again and again, even though they didn't change. Total stolen refunds, $3,900, $4,180, $4,327 equals $12,407. All of it gone, spent, used, taken without a second thought. Money that should have gone to bills, to emergencies, to savings, never made it into my hands. Money I earned from long shifts, long hours, sore backs, and calloused hands was stolen with a few fake signatures. Money that was mine since the day I got my job was taken by someone who shared my last name. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. Chris didn't just steal one refund. He stole 3 years of them. 3 years of my work. 3 years of my life. 3 years of money he never earned. And the worst part, the part that made my hands tremble even harder, was knowing he wasn't sorry. He never was. He always took what he wanted and expected me to clean up the mess. This time, the mess was huge, and this time, I wasn't going to stay quiet. I didn't wait. I didn't sit down to think. I didn't even grab a jacket. As soon as I saw the proof, the fake tax return, the fake signature, the wrong address, and the 3 years of stolen refunds, I grabbed my keys and drove straight to my parents' house. The whole way there, my hands shook on the steering wheel. My throat felt tight. My legs felt heavy. I couldn't tell if I wanted to cry, scream, or disappear. All I knew was that I needed answers. When I walked inside, everything looked painfully normal. Chris was sitting on the couch playing video games, leaning back like his whole life was one big nap. The screen flashed bright colors from his racing game. He didn't even glance at me when the door opened. Mom was in the kitchen cooking something that smelled like garlic and butter. She hummed to herself like nothing in the world was wrong. Dad was in his recliner watching baseball, yelling at the TV every time the pitcher messed up. None of them knew my stomach felt like it was twisting into a knot. None of them knew I had just found out someone stole 3 years of my tax refunds. None of them knew I was seconds away from breaking. I stepped into the living room and held up the printed transcript, the one the IRS sent me, the one with my stolen refunds listed in bold numbers. My voice didn't sound like my own. It sounded thin, quiet, hurt. "Why did you file my taxes?" I said. Chris paused his game but didn't look scared. He didn't even pretend to look confused or surprised. He just turned his head slightly and raised an eyebrow. Mom peeked from the kitchen doorway. Dad muted the TV. But Chris didn't look guilty at all. He leaned back, smirked, and shrugged like someone asking what's for dinner. "You never care about tax refunds," he said. "You don't even need them." The words hit me harder than any punch. They knocked the breath out of my chest. "You don't even need them." Like the $12,407 belonged to him. Like my identity was something he could borrow whenever he wanted. Like my hard-earned money was extra he was free to take. My hands trembled. "That money was mine," I said. "That was my refund, my work, my name." Chris rolled his eyes. "Relax, Ty. You're always working. You'll get more money. It's not a big deal." Not a big deal? 3 years of refunds, 3 years of stealing, 3 years of pretending to be me. My chest felt tight. "You forged my signature," I said. "You sent the refund to a bank I've never used." He shrugged again. Slow and lazy. "Yeah. So? So?" My mind raced. My heart pounded. My breath shook. Mom walked closer. "Tyler, don't start a fight. You know Chris has been struggling. Let it go." "Let it go." "Of course." Dad sighed loudly. "We're all family. Taxes aren't worth causing drama over." Taxes? Drama? They didn't get it. They didn't even try to get it. This wasn't about taxes. It wasn't about money. It wasn't about refunds. It was about identity. My identity. The thing no one is ever supposed to touch. But Chris didn't see it that way. He saw it like he saw everything else in life. Something he deserved just for being him. I felt numb. Totally numb. My parents weren't shocked. They weren't angry at him. They weren't even disappointed. They expected me to swallow it. Again. Like always. I looked at Chris, at his smirk, at the way he relaxed into the couch like he owned the place. And a cold realization settled in my chest. He would never stop taking from me. Not because he needed it, but because he always believed my life belonged to him. And in that moment, it felt like someone punched my heart. Because now I finally knew. Chris didn't steal my refunds by accident. He stole them because he thought I didn't matter. For a moment after Chris told me I didn't need my own refund, the room felt frozen. The TV was muted, the stove kept sizzling softly, and the only person breathing loudly was me. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I looked at Chris, then at Mom, then at Dad, waiting for someone, anyone, to say, "This is wrong." Nobody did. Instead, Mom flipped the pan on the stove a little too hard. The food inside splattered onto the counter, but she didn't even notice. She whipped around and pointed the spatula at me. "Chris needed the money last year," she snapped. "He was struggling." Struggling? I blinked slowly, trying not to laugh or scream. Chris wasn't struggling last year, not even a little. Last year, he bought a brand new PS5 using Refund. He bragged about it for weeks. He posted pictures of it online. He even made a video unboxing it, calling it the easiest purchase ever. And now Mom stood there pretending he was starving on the streets. I opened my mouth, but before I could speak, Dad added his opinion like he was some wise judge. "It's family money anyway," he said, leaning back in his chair as if he had just spoken a deep truth. Family money? I stared at him. No, it wasn't family money. It was my money, my refund, my hard work, my name, my identity. I worked cold mornings and long shifts. Chris slept late and played video games. How in the world was that family money? I took a slow breath. Dad, it wasn't family money. It was mine. All of it. Mom scoffed loudly. Tyler, don't make everything about yourself. Everything about myself? It was myself. It was literally filed under my social security number. I felt the anger rising in my chest again. Hot, sharp, impossible to swallow. Chris didn't care. He didn't even pretend to care. He shrugged, leaned back on the couch, and said in the laziest voice I had ever heard, "Relax. I'll file yours again this year. Don't be dramatic." That was the moment I nearly threw my phone at him. Not because I wanted to hurt him, but because his words were like gasoline on a burning fire. He acted like he was doing me a favor by stealing from me. Relax? Relax? He stole 3 years of refunds. He stole $12,407. He stole my ID. He stole my signature. He stole my future tax credits. And now he wanted to do it again? My hand tightened around my phone. I felt it almost slipping from my grip. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell them all how wrong this was. I wanted to remind them that identity theft was a crime, an actual, real crime. But instead, Chris kept talking, like he didn't even notice the anger shaking through my whole body. "Seriously, Ty," he said with a smirk, "I'm good at this stuff now. I can get the refund faster. You never use it anyway." He was proud. Proud of stealing, proud of lying, proud of using my identity like a spare key. And my parents sat there nodding along like he had just solved world peace. I looked at Mom. I looked at Dad. I looked at Chris. They weren't confused. They weren't mistaken. They weren't sorry. They believed they had the right to use my identity. They believed my money belonged to them. They believed Chris deserved anything he wanted. And they believed I should stay quiet because I was the stable one. In that moment, standing in that living room full of excuses, I realized something heavy. They weren't defending him because they didn't understand. They were defending him because they agreed with what he did. And that hurt more than losing the money, more than losing the refund, more than losing my time. Because I finally saw the truth. They didn't just let Chris steal my refunds. They expected him to. After the fight in the living room, I went home feeling like my chest was full of bricks. My head hurt. My hands were cold. I kept telling myself maybe, just maybe, I was wrong. Maybe Chris didn't steal all 3 refunds. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe he only messed up once. But deep down I knew better. I knew Chris didn't just mess up. He planned it, he practiced it, and he counted on me never checking. Still, I needed proof. Official proof, the kind that didn't come from memories or guesses. So I requested a full IRS fraud report summary. It took a few days to arrive, and each day felt like waiting for a storm to hit. When the email finally came, I sat down on my bed, took a deep breath, and opened it. The very first line made my stomach twist. Refunds deposited into a prepaid card under the name C. Hayes C. Hayes. Chris's last name is Hayes. My parents' last name is Hayes. My last name is Hayes too. But I never opened a prepaid card. I didn't choose that bank. I didn't list that account. Chris did. I scrolled. The next line hit even harder. Returns filed from IP address 192.168.0.4. Registered location, parents' home. I stared at that line until the letters blurred. He filed the returns from my parents' house, from the same couch where he watched video games, from the same Wi-Fi my parents paid for, from the same spot where he ate snacks and ignored chores. He didn't file them somewhere far away. He didn't hide. He filed them at home because he knew they wouldn't stop him. I scrolled again. The next part made my chest hurt. Address listed for filer. Parents' full address. My tax return under my name was sent to their house. Not my apartment, not my mailing address, not any place I ever lived. They didn't even bother changing the address. They didn't even pretend. I kept reading, even though every line felt like a punch. Direct deposit routing number, matches bank account, belonging to Chris Hayes. That was it. The clearest proof of all. The refund didn't accidentally go somewhere wrong. It didn't get sent to a stranger. It didn't get lost in the system. It went straight into Chris's bank account. Line after line made me feel sicker. Filer signature inconsistent with provided signature file, possible forgery, device used. Laptop registered to household Wi-Fi, multiple years flagged for suspicious repeat behavior. Multiple years, not once, not twice. 3 whole years. 3 years of stealing. 3 years of lying. 3 years of pretending I just forgot to file my taxes. 3 years of thinking I was too quiet, too soft, too trusting to notice. I sat back against my wall. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped my phone. Chris didn't do this alone. He couldn't have. Someone had to help him file. Someone had to help him access my numbers. Someone had to hand him my social security card when he couldn't find his wallet again. Someone had to let him use their address, their Wi-Fi, their time. My chest burned. My parents knew. They helped. They lied to me for years. The truth sat in my stomach like a heavy stone. All the times Mom said, "Don't worry about your refund. It takes time." She knew. All the times Dad said, "You probably messed up the form." He knew. All the times Chris bought something new and said, "I had extra money this month." They both knew. They didn't just watch him steal my refunds. They protected him while he did it. They let him use their house, their Wi-Fi, their address, their computers, their support, and not a single one of them warned me. As I stared at the report, I felt something break inside me. Not anger, not fear, but something deeper. A quiet truth. I wasn't just dealing with a brother who stole my money. I was dealing with a family who never saw stealing from me as wrong. The next time I walked into my parents' house, I wasn't shaking. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't confused. I was done. Done being quiet. Done being stable. Done being the kid they expected to carry the weight while Chris did whatever he wanted. I stood in the middle of the living room, holding the printed IRS fraud report. My hands didn't shake this time. My voice didn't break. I felt clear, clearer than I had felt in years. "I'm reporting this," I said. The words hit the room like a lightning strike. Mom spun around so fast the spoon flew out of her hand and hit the floor. She looked at me like I had thrown a bomb. Her face twisted with anger, and she screamed like I had stabbed her. "You will not send your brother to jail." Her voice was so loud it made my ears ring. She wasn't scared about what Chris did. She was scared he'd finally face consequences. Dad jumped up from his recliner, red in the face, pointing at me like I was the villain. "He was helping the family," he shouted. Helping? I couldn't stop the bitter laugh that escaped my mouth. Helping, I repeated, almost choking on the word. He helped himself, to thousands of my dollars. Mom gasped like I had insulted the whole family. "How can you say that? He filed your taxes so you wouldn't stress." "He stole them," I yelled. 3 years in a row. The room exploded. Dad yelled louder. Mom cried louder. But Chris stood up from the couch slowly, like the king they had always treated him as. He didn't look guilty. He didn't look scared. He didn't look sorry. He looked annoyed. He took one step toward me, pointing at the IRS report in my hand. "You're pathetic," he said. "Pathetic if you ruin my life over a refund." A refund? A refund? I felt something boil inside me, a heat I had been holding in for years, maybe my whole life. 3 stolen refunds, 3 forged signatures, 3 lies, 3 years of him living off money he didn't earn. He took $12,407 from me, and he called me pathetic? Something snapped in me, something sharp, something loud. I stepped forward and yelled, "You ruined mine first!" The room fell silent, completely silent. Mom froze. Dad blinked. Chris clenched his jaw, but I wasn't done. "You stole my identity," I said, pointing straight at him. "You stole my money. You filed my taxes from this house. You used Mom's address. You used Dad's Wi-Fi. You lied to me for years." Dad opened his mouth, but I cut him off. "And you two let him," I said, glaring at my parents. "You helped him. You protected him. You hid it from me." Mom covered her mouth. "Tyler, don't say that." "It's the truth," I shouted. "All of you stole from me, and you expect me to stay quiet?" Chris rolled his eyes. "It's not that serious." Not that serious. Hearing those words made my hands curl into fists. He stole from me. He lied to me. He used my identity like a toy. And to him, it wasn't serious. I stepped back, feeling a strange kind of calm settle over me, the kind that comes right before a tornado hits. "I'm reporting this," I said again, steady and sure. "To the IRS, to the police. I'm done letting you walk all over me." Mom screamed again. Dad shouted again. Chris cursed under his breath, but none of them stopped me this time. I walked out the door, the report in my hand, my heart pounding, but strong. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the quiet one. I wasn't the stable one. I wasn't the flashlight they only used when the house went dark. I was someone who finally said, enough. When I left my parents' house after the blow-up, my heart felt bruised. Not just sad, not just angry. It felt tired. The kind of tired that sits deep in your chest. The kind of tired that makes you feel like you've been carrying a heavy backpack for years. I knew if I went back inside, I would break. Maybe break something in the house. Maybe break down crying. Maybe break a part of myself I wouldn't be able to fix. So I didn't go back. I went home instead, closed the door, locked it, and told myself one thing. This time, I am protecting myself. I sat at my desk and opened my laptop. My eyes were burning from how long I had been crying earlier, but I ignored it. I pulled up all the IRS documents again. Then I opened another folder with screenshots of fake returns, bank statements, and every tiny piece of proof I could find. I began compiling everything. First, I saved the fake tax returns the IRS sent me. All 3 years, all 3 false filings, every single box filled in with information I never typed. Next, I gathered Chris's handwriting samples, old birthday cards, sticky notes, a chore list he wrote years ago. Every letter looked just like the sloppy handwriting on the fake returns. Then I downloaded the deposit logs showing where the refunds went. Straight into that prepaid card. Straight into Chris's hands. Straight into things he bragged about owning. I pulled up the IRS transcripts again. The ones that listed every refund amount, every false filing date, every lie. And finally, I saved the most important piece, the filing IP address records. The report clearly showed the filings were sent from my parents' Wi-Fi at my parents' house, on a device connected to their network 3 years in a row. They didn't use a library. They didn't hide behind a VPN. They didn't go to a friend's house. They did it right at home, together. When all the documents were ready, I made a big folder on my computer and named it Identity Theft. Tyler H. Official Evidence. Just seeing that title made my stomach twist, but it also made me feel stronger. This wasn't a guess. This wasn't a story. This wasn't me overreacting, like my parents always said. This was fact. Once the folder was complete, I uploaded every file into 3 separate emails. The first email went to the IRS Identity Theft Unit. They investigate criminal identity theft cases. The second email went to the State Tax Board. They handle tax fraud inside my state. The third email went to the Federal Investigation Department. They review serious identity crimes like this. In each email, I wrote the same thing. I did not file these tax returns. My identity was stolen. Here is every piece of evidence I have. Then I attached the entire folder. My finger hovered over the send button for a long second. Not because I doubted myself, but because hitting that button meant everything was about to change. No going back, no staying quiet, no pretending my brother made a mistake. So I clicked it. Send, send, send. 3 emails, 3 agencies, 3 years of lies finally uncovered. When it was done, I leaned back in my chair and let out a breath I'd been holding for months, maybe even years. My hands shook a little, but this time it wasn't fear. It was release. Then I did something I had never done before in my life. I blocked my whole family. Mom, Dad, Chris, aunts, uncles, even cousins who might try to calm me down. I blocked every number, every chat, every social media account. I didn't block them forever, just for 72 hours, 3 days. Because if I didn't, if I kept listening to their yelling, their blaming, their guilt trips, I would have broken something. Maybe myself. And I wasn't going to let them break me anymore. Fallout doesn't arrive all at once. It comes slowly, piece by piece, like heavy rain starting with only one drop. At first, nothing happened. My phone stayed quiet. My email stayed normal. Life felt almost calm. But underneath the quiet, something big was building. Then, 1 month later, the storm arrived. The first letter wasn't even for me. It was for Chris. I opened my mailbox and saw a thin envelope addressed to him, but sent to my home because I had listed myself as the contact for the fraud case. The letter said, Christopher Hayes is banned from filing taxes for 5 years. 5 years. A whole half-decade. He wasn't allowed to file anything. Not online. Not by mail. Not at a tax office. Not with help. Not at all. Every tax return under his name had to be frozen until the investigation finished. I sat on my couch holding the letter. For the first time since this nightmare started, I felt something new. Relief. Then the second letter came. This one was for me. It said, all future refunds for Tyler Hayes will go through identity verification only. Only me, only my fingerprints, only my ID, only my address, only my proof. That meant nobody could ever file taxes, refunds, or credits using my name again. Not Chris, not anyone living in my parents' house, not any stranger, no one. The next letter hit even harder. The IRS officially wrote, "We are opening a full investigation into Christopher Hayes for identity fraud and tax theft." Identity fraud, tax theft, federal crimes. They were taking it seriously. For once, someone was standing up for me. 1 week later, my parents got their own letter. They didn't send me a picture of it, but the tax agent forwarded me the file. The letter said, "You may have aided or allowed misuse of federal information." A warning, a serious one. It meant my parents weren't innocent bystanders. They weren't clueless. They weren't confused. They were part of it. They let Chris use their house, their Wi-Fi, their address, their computer, their silence. The letter warned that if it ever happened again, they could face huge fines, or worse. Then came the biggest update of all. Chris officially owed the IRS $12,407 interest penalties fees. He didn't owe that money to me. He owed it to the government. And the government doesn't forgive the way families do. They don't forget. They don't say, let it go. They don't blame the wrong person. They make you pay every cent. After that, the voicemails started. One from mom, then 2, then 5, then 12. Her voice sounded like she had been crying nonstop for 2 days. "Tyler, please call me back. You destroyed your brother. Tyler, you ruined everything. Tyler, how could you do this to him? He's scared. He's upset. He can't sleep. Tyler, you have to stop this. You're tearing the family apart." I listened to half of one voicemail before stopping. The guilt she tried to throw at me felt heavy, like wet sand. But something inside me stayed firm. I didn't destroy anything. I didn't create this mess. I didn't start this disaster. Chris did. He stole my social security number. He stole my refunds. He stole 3 years of money. He forged my signature. He used my parents' house. He got them involved. He lied every year. The consequences belonged to him, not to me. So I typed a short message and sent it back. No. He destroyed himself the moment he stole from me. I didn't add anything else. No long speech, no yelling, no fighting, just the truth. And as soon as I hit send, I felt something settle inside me. A calm, a strength, a quiet kind of power I had never felt before. For years, I let Chris take what he wanted. I let my parents excuse everything. I let myself shrink to stay peaceful. Not this time. This time, the fallout hit the right person, and I wasn't going to carry his punishment ever again. After the fallout hit Chris and my parents, I made a choice, a real choice. A choice for myself, maybe for the first time in my whole life. I packed my things, clothes, books, the little items that made me feel safe. Then I moved into a new apartment far from my old neighborhood. It wasn't huge, and it wasn't fancy, but it felt clean inside my heart. The walls were empty, but in a good way, like they were waiting for real memories, not painful ones. For the first time, the silence didn't hurt. It felt peaceful. The first thing I bought for the new place wasn't a couch or a TV. It was a safe, a heavy one with a steel door and a code only I knew. Inside it, I placed the things that should have always been protected. My birth certificate, my social security card, my passport, my medical papers, my tax documents, my bank info. Everything Chris once used against me now sat locked away, unreachable to anyone but me. I ran my fingers across the top of the safe and whispered to myself, "No one will touch my identity again." Then I did something even smarter. I locked my credit, all 3 credit bureaus, no new accounts, no loans, no cards, nothing without my approval. It felt like putting a fence around my future. Next, I started therapy. Not because I felt broken, but because I wanted to become stronger than the pain my family caused. My therapist listened without judging. She didn't call me dramatic. She didn't tell me to let it go. She didn't treat Chris like some magical golden boy. She said something that stayed in my heart. Protecting yourself is not betrayal, it's healing. And she was right. About 2 weeks later, just when my new life finally felt steady, my phone buzzed. A message from a number I hadn't blocked yet. Chris. I stared at the screen for a moment before opening the text. "Can you lend me $500? IRS is on my ass." I almost laughed. Not a loud laugh, a tired one. A laugh that said, of course he would ask that. Chris didn't apologize. He didn't ask how I was. He didn't say he understood what he did. He wanted more money. Again, like always, I could have ignored him. I could have argued. I could have wished him luck. Instead, I typed exactly what he deserved to hear. Ask the person who stole $12,407 from me. I looked at the message for a moment, making sure it was clear, calm, and honest. Then I hit send. And after that, without waiting for his answer, without letting my heart get pulled back into old patterns, I did the thing that sealed my freedom. I blocked him, blocked his number, blocked his email, blocked his social media, blocked everything. My phone went quiet again. Peaceful quiet, not lonely quiet, because this time, I wasn't losing a family member, I was losing a thief. I sat on my new sofa, took a deep breath, and looked around my small apartment. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't huge, but it was mine, and it was safe. My money was mine. My identity was mine. My future was mine. And for the first time ever, I felt proud of myself. Not for being stable, not for being the helper, not for being the brother who stayed silent, but for being the brother who finally said, no more. This time, I wasn't the one getting leftovers. I was the one building a life that no one could steal again. And that was the greatest refund I ever received.